Hello, I'm Doug and this is a Taste and Sensibility channel. And today we're at episode 2 of Mild Melty Cheeses, which is really the Havarti gateway in Liz Thorpe's book, The Book of Cheese. And she really wanted to call it the Gouda gateway, as we discussed last time. But Gouda is too confusing because there's so many available aged ones, and that is not what she's conveying. She's conveying the young, smooth, mild tasting and very melty texture. And that's what we have here today with the Colby, is mild taste and melty texture. Colby and I go way back to my childhood when my dad would go through the store and try to pick out the holiest, hardest Colby cheese that he could find in the grocery store because he liked the leathery, older texture, harder, firmer texture. And after tasting several back then, I agreed with him, and I was always looking for that the rest of my life also. And then it changed. I couldn't find the holes. I couldn't find the hard texture. I couldn't find the childhood memories that were out there. And Liz reports in her book a reason for that. But that does point out that many of these early cheeses we're talking about in this group, the mild melty ones, Gouda and Colby, and next time we're doing Asiago, are washed curd cheeses, which is not to be confused with the washed rind, which is after the whole thing is formed, you wash it with some solution to have it develop a flavor or aroma. But this is as soon as there's some cheese curds in the rennet, after the rennet edition, and you have some curds, those are washed off to get the whey off. So there's less protein, there's less of the milk solids on the outside of the cheese curds, and that keeps them slightly separated. So you have a bunch of little balls that don't get packed together so tightly. And that generates a few holes in the structure. So if you look at the outside of this big picture of the big block of Colby, you can see lots of little dents where the holes were, where the curds came together. But mostly those holes are a thing of the past. So I have here 4 different brands. So the recommended brand of Liz is Widmer's Cheese Cellars, and that's what this one is. And I spent a few minutes cutting all the mold off the outside because I ordered it so long ago. I ordered it from Wisconsin, and then it came in and I ordered a couple others. So this is a Wisconsin cheese, this is a Wisconsin Colby, and then this is just the stuff I can see at Walmart. In the cheese section, where it's usually whole and shredded cheeses, they have their own store brand, so I've got some of that too as a comparison. So before we get into this, let me ask you to like this video, leave comments and questions down below, share it with friends, and subscribe, and click that bell to get notified when the new videos come out. So I'm going to peel off. I've already sliced this on a slicer in some cases here. I didn't want to be cutting everything all the time. I'm going to taste this Widmer's Cheese Cellar cheese. It's a smooth, very wet, a little pasty. And the taste is slightly tangy. There's a good buttery, good dairy notes in there. Creamy. I can tell it's salted. There's a little tang to it. So I'm going to put this on a little cracker. I'm going to use a low salt Triscuit here. That gets along pretty well. It's a mild cheese, but it has some character to it. Also going to take some of this, just forgot the name, my mind went blank. There'll certainly be a picture of it, and I'll put it on the screen if I can't think of it in the next few seconds. But here's another Wisconsin made Colby at a Careful Dairy. On this one, I don't quite get the tanginess. It's a little more firmer, more solid, drier, less pasty, less wet texture, and I don't get a tang. And just based on memory, there's less salt here than there was in the Widmers. Okay, so very different. I think I'll do this on a buttery cracker. Okay, I can tell the cracker is saltier than the cheese. And the buttery, dairy, all the dairy notes come through just fine. And it's a great, goes along great with that cracker. Okay, now we're moving on to the Walmart Great Value brand. I also just cut off a chunk from the 1 pound brick I got and sliced it while I was slicing cheese. Very mushy, wet texture. Wetter and mushier than the Widmer's was. And not a lot of character in the flavor. The dairy notes are mild. Not as strong as either of these two. So it'd be hard to offend somebody unless they were expecting a flavor. On an oily, salty crostini, the cheese was improved by the cracker. The cracker was the most interesting part there. So I buy this every once in a while when I have a longing for Colby and the other stores don't have anything. The stores I frequent very often don't carry a Colby. And I buy this and it's, yeah, it's okay. And in comparison to these carefully made Wisconsin cheeses, it's just okay. And I guess I'll try cutting a piece off of this. This is the thickness of the piece that came to me. You can see it's cut out of a bigger loaf. I'll go ahead and cut one more just to have a couple laying around. And we'll see how this is the same or different from the others. I'd say pasty and wet like the Widmers. Not a tang to it. Or maybe it's there and very mild, very subtle. And good dairy notes. I can tell the salt is in there. Now, overall, it's got the typical Colby characteristics that were more displayed in these two up front. Let's see if I can not butcher a cracker here. And get some on a little piece of flatbread. Okay, that's good. Okay, the cheese is saltier than the cracker, than the flatbread. And it, the blandness of the cracker helps the dairy notes pop out a little more. There's a creaminess, a butteriness, a texture that's smooth and creamy. And I didn't pick up as much wet, pasty feel or texture with the cracker in there. So that's an interesting effect. I'll put links down below to the Widmers, the Hennings, and to this Wisconsin Cheese Mart loaf. That was 2.5 pounds and very good size. More cheese than you need usually. Colby was invented in the United States. Here's the page and the entry on Colby. For its cow milk pasteurized, recommended brands Widmer's cheese sellers. Briefly cheesy, airy and moist, though firm, milky and mild. The better mild cheddar. So, okay, so it's lower in acid, creamier in texture, and meant to be open and airy. In the mid-1990s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture changed Colby's grade standards so that the holes weren't required, thus blurring the line between it and cheddar. This is a bummer because it's got an important place in Wisconsin and American cheese history. Joseph Widmer, the Wisconsin master cheesemaker who makes my preferred brand, laments this change because it's enabled mediocre Colby to flood the market and undermine what this American original is meant to be. Bravo! You tell him! Which is moist and pillowy, peppered with holes the size of split peas. The flavor is totally mild, milky, and easy, but that paste is pure dairy succulence. So, that explains why this is no longer reminds me of my childhood. And I think I will do a pairing. I need to cut more pieces. I'll do a little bit here, and I'm going to put on some dried cranberries onto this buttery cracker and Widmer's cheese. That's really good. The dairy notes make the fruit flavors pop more in the cranberries, and vice versa. The tartness and sweetness, both the cranberries and the fruitiness, really make the dairy notes louder. It was a creamy and crunchy combination. So lots of texture contrast with the cracker there too. Let me get just a piece of cheese and try it with pear and apple. So, how big do I want this thing? Okay, I'm going to take a whole slice of pear, which is almost ripe. It's not dripping a lot of juice or anything, but it's not hard either. Okay, the wetness of the pear is an interesting contrast to squishy cheese. The flavors are dancing around and go well together, but the texture combination is a little weird. So be careful pairing pears with squishy cheeses. Let me get a little bit of this Wisconsin Cheese Mart sample. Just want one. Just one. There. And I'm putting that with a crisper, sweeter apple. Oh, so they play off of each other really well. There's a tanginess to the whole thing that wasn't there in the plain cheese by itself. And the crispiness, crunchy texture of the apple contrasted nicely with the cheese. So those are pretty good. And now I'm going to remove the cheese and bring in the grilled cheese, which will be made with this round one from Wisconsin Cheese Mart. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back with the sandwich. And I think this is Nature's Own butter bread. And it did not run out all over the place. The cheese is a little firmer when it melts. It doesn't run all around like American slices, American processed slices. So let's see how I used unsalted butter making this, and thin slices of cheese like over here. So let's go. The toastiness of the bread is just exquisite. And the cheese is not like an American processed slice where it just melts and flows and runs. This stays put, gives some resistance, it pulls, it fights back when you're trying to bite off some. It's a tough string holding on. So that's great for flavor, great for texture. Definitely dairy, cheesy notes in there. And they are to the mild side. Not like a strong cheddar, not like a salty American slice. So that's pretty good, and I will be doing this with a lot of cheese I have, because I have a lot in different kinds. So again, please like this video, leave comments, leave questions, share it with friends, and subscribe and click on that bell. And we will look at more cheeses in this group next time. Cheers.